I never thought a simple invitation could feel like a declaration of war. Yet when I saw her standing by the glowing hallway of the Chicago Art School, it did. It was almost midnight, the kind of late hour where the city hums quietly but carries secrets in the shadows. I had stayed behind to work on a painting, hoping no one would interrupt my meticulous strokes and obsessive attention to detail. That's when she appeared, Lila, the mysterious student everyone whispered about but no one truly knew. Her presence was both a threat and a promise, and in an instant my heart betrayed me by skipping a beat. She wore a dark coat that clung to her figure, revealing hints of the elegance she carried effortlessly. Her green eyes scanned the empty hall until they landed on me, and for a moment, I thought she could see into the parts of me I had carefully hidden. The invitation came with a smirk, playful yet challenging. Stay late with me tonight. I have something to show you. Curiosity collided with hesitation. Who did she think she was? This girl who wove around the school like a whisper no one could ignore. And yet I wanted to say yes. I wanted to see what she was hiding. Why her gaze seemed to pull me closer with every heartbeat. The studio we entered smelled of paint and turpentine, a mixture that somehow felt comforting in her presence. Canvases leaned against the walls, unfinished sketches spilling over tables. The lighting was soft, golden and intimate, a stark contrast to the harsh fluorescence of the hallways. Lila moved with confidence, each step deliberate, as if she owned the air in the room. I wanted to show you something, she said, her voice low, smooth and a little teasing. There was a pause, a charged silence, and then she gestured to a canvas hidden behind a screen. It's private. My favorite work. I walked closer, heart hammering, and caught my first real glimpse. The painting was unlike anything I had ever seen, raw, passionate, and painfully honest. Shadows danced with light in ways that made me ache, colors bleeding into each other like emotions refusing to be contained. And then I realized the painting felt familiar. Too familiar. It reflected something I didn't even know I had lost. A part of me buried under years of perfectionism and self-doubt. Lila stepped beside me and for the first time, I noticed the scent of her, faint and floral, calming yet intoxicating. Her eyes studied mine with a mixture of challenge and invitation. You see yourself in it, don't you? I wanted to protest, to hide my vulnerability behind sarcasm or pride, but my voice betrayed me. I admitted, feeling heat creep up my neck. It's intense. She smiled, not maliciously, but like she knew a secret worth keeping. Good art should be intense, she whispered, leaning just slightly closer. Just like life. My hands itched to touch the canvas, to feel the texture of her passion. Instead, I found myself reaching for her hand, almost by accident, almost by instinct. She didn't pull away. Instead, she let our fingers brush, a spark igniting that neither of us could deny. The warmth of her skin sent a shiver down my spine, and suddenly the room felt smaller, the world outside irrelevant. For the next hour, we circled each other like planets caught in an unseen orbit. Words came slowly, deliberately, filled with both caution and longing. Lila spoke about her art, about inspiration found in unexpected places, about loneliness in a city that never sleeps. And I spoke about my fear of failure, my obsession with detail, my secret longing for connection. Every glance, every brush of hands, seemed amplified in the silence of the empty studio. It was intoxicating, terrifying, and exhilarating all at once. I wanted to pull back, to retreat into the safety of my routine, but her presence was magnetic, irresistible. Then she did something I didn't expect. She turned to me with a mischievous grin and plucked a small brush from the table. Come on, she said. Show me how you see the world. I hesitated. My pride, my fear of imperfection, screamed inside me. But the moment stretched too far, too electric to ignore. I stepped closer and under her gaze, began to paint on a blank canvas she had set aside. She watched me silent, yet her energy pressed against me like a gentle current, guiding, encouraging, daring me to reveal more than just skill. As the brush moved, I felt a strange liberation. It wasn't about the strokes or the colors, it was about being seen, truly seen, by someone who seemed to understand without words. And Lila, with her enigmatic smile and teasing glance, was doing exactly that. The night deepened, and the studio became our world. We laughed at mistakes, shared stories we had never told anyone, and in the quiet spaces between words the tension grew. It was more than friendship. It was the beginning of something neither of us could define yet. Finally, she set down her brush and stepped closer. "You're different than I expected," she murmured. Her hand hovered near mine, teasingly, and I felt the pull of everything I had been denying. I don't know what you expected," I stammered, aware of the heat rising in my chest. Her grin softened into something gentler, almost vulnerable. "I expected nothing. And yet here we are." The words hung in the air, heavy with possibility. And in that suspended moment, I realized that what we had started, this strange, thrilling connection, was more than just curiosity or attraction. It was the beginning of a story neither of us could have predicted, one that would change us forever. By the time the clock struck 2, the city outside was quiet, yet inside the studio, the energy between us crackled like electricity. I knew that leaving would be impossible, not just tonight, but ever after. Lila was a force, a spark, and I was caught in her gravity, willingly, completely. Her eyes met mine, green and unflinching. "So what now?" she asked, teasing, dangerous, tender all at once. I swallowed, heart pounding, knowing that the answer was no longer about words. It was about choices. And as I reached for her hand again, finally letting go of hesitation, I knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same. We spent the rest of the night painting, talking, and daring to touch the edges of our emotions, learning the contours of each other's hearts like we were sketching a new masterpiece. Every laugh, every shy glance, every accidental brush of fingers was a stroke in a canvas of intimacy that neither of us wanted to end. By dawn, exhaustion mixed with exhilaration. We leaned against the edge of a table, our hands entwined, breathing in sync, the silence filled with the kind of comfort that comes only after truth has been shared and walls have been lowered. "I didn't know it could feel like this," I whispered. "Neither did I," Lila replied, her head tilting toward mine, lips brushing my hair. "But maybe that's the point." And in that quiet, golden morning light I understood. Some nights were meant to break you open, to show you the parts of yourself you had been too afraid to face. And some people were meant to be the catalysts of that revelation. Lila was mine, and I was hers, mysterious, challenging, and utterly irresistible. The days that followed were a dizzying blur. Chicago in spring had its own rhythm, a mixture of brisk wind, glimmering sunlight, and the soft hum of traffic that never quite let the city sleep. But for me, the world had narrowed to a single orbit, a single magnetic pull, Lila. Classes became a pretext to see her, a reason to linger in hallways, to brush past her in corridors crowded with students. Every glance she threw my way carried weight, a subtle challenge that left me breathless. It was a dance, delicate yet fierce, the kind that made every heartbeat louder than the last. One afternoon, she found me in the sculpture studio, crouched over a lump of clay that stubbornly refused to take shape. "You're making that clay look angry," she teased, stepping over with that familiar grace, the golden sunlight catching strands of her dark hair. "I'm trying to make it alive," I said, not meeting her eyes. But she didn't need my gaze to know the truth. She crouched beside me, hands hovering near mine. "Maybe it just needs someone to see it," she whispered, her breath warm against my ear. Her hand brushed my fingers, casual but electric. I froze, heart hammering, realizing again how dangerously intoxicating her presence had become. "Or maybe it's just me," I admitted, the words slipping out before I could stop them. Lila tilted her head, a half-smile forming, teasing yet soft. "Or maybe both." From that moment our interactions shifted subtly. Conversations that had been playful became layered, charged with unspoken desire. We laughed, argued gently about art, and challenged each other in ways that felt intimate, dangerous, and exhilarating all at once. Every touch lingered longer than necessary. Every brush of hands, every shared glance became a silent confession. One evening, she invited me to a gallery opening in downtown Chicago. The city glittered beneath us as we walked side by side, the cold wind tugging at our coats. I noticed how her hand found mine with ease, fingers intertwining as if we had always belonged together. The gallery was alive with light and color, canvases and sculptures demanding attention. But all I could see was her. She moved through the crowd like a flame, drawing eyes without trying. I felt both protective and envious, protective of what I had discovered in her, envious of everyone who would get a fleeting glimpse of her brilliance. She paused in front of a painting that depicted a stormy sea, waves colliding in violent beauty. It reminds me of Chicago sometimes, she murmured. Her green eyes found mine searching, almost vulnerable. Messy, unpredictable, but full of life. I stepped closer, emboldened. Like us? I asked quietly. She blinked, lips parting slightly, and a flicker of something fear, excitement, longing crossed her face. Maybe, she whispered, and my heart lurched. We left the gallery together. The streets quiet now, neon lights reflecting in puddles from an earlier rain. Lila's hand never left mine, guiding, teasing, and grounding me all at once. At a small cafe tucked away in a side street, we found a booth, the warm lighting casting our shadows across the walls. Tell me a secret, I challenged her, voice low, the words a playful dare. She laughed softly, a sound that made the room feel smaller, intimate. I have a lot of secrets, she said, eyes glinting mischievously. But I'll tell you one. I've never felt this connection with anyone. Ever. My throat went dry. Neither have I admitted, surprised by my own vulnerability. There was a pause, the kind that stretches moments into eternity. Then she reached across the table, her hand covering mine. The warmth of her touch was grounding yet electrifying. It's frightening, isn't it? She whispered. How quickly it feels like everything is changing. Yes, I breathed, leaning closer, drawn by gravity I could no longer resist. But it's also inevitable. Our first kiss happened under the soft hum of the cafe's dim light, tentative and trembling at first, then deepening into something all-consuming. It was a kiss that spoke of months of unspoken longing, of nights spent imagining what it might feel like, of stolen glances and brushed hands. And when we finally pulled apart, the world seemed to hold its breath. From that night onward, the line between friendship and something more blurred completely. Days were spent creating, sharing secrets, laughing, and sometimes arguing about the smallest things, but always ending in understanding and closeness that neither of us had expected. Yet, with intimacy came tension. I began to notice shadows in Lila's expressions, moments where she would drift away, lost in thoughts she didn't share. And I, foolishly protective, wanted to reach in, to understand, to fix whatever was unspoken. One rainy afternoon, I found her sitting by a window in the studio, staring at the city drenched in gray. The rain ran down the glass in rivulets, distorting the neon signs outside. I approached quietly, careful not to startle her. Lila, I asked softly. She didn't turn at first, letting silence linger. Then slowly she looked at me, eyes shimmering with unspoken emotion. Sometimes I'm afraid, she confessed. Afraid that if I let myself feel completely, I'll lose myself, or worse, lose you. My heart ached at her words. You won't lose me, I said, voice firm, reaching for her hand. We'll navigate it together. You don't have to carry it alone. She allowed a small smile, fragile yet sincere. You really mean that? Every word, I whispered, feeling the weight of my promise. We spent hours talking that evening, revealing the parts of ourselves we had hidden even from our closest friends. Lila spoke of her childhood, her struggles with self-doubt despite her undeniable talent, and the loneliness that had followed her even in crowded rooms. I shared my fears, my obsession with perfection, my desperate need for connection. By the time night fell, we had created a new kind of intimacy, one built on trust and shared vulnerability. The tension between us remained, yes, but it was now tempered with understanding and affection. Our kisses became a language, our touches a conversation. We explored Chicago together, often at night when the city's pulse slowed, discovering hidden alleys, tiny coffee shops, and murals that seemed to exist just for us. Each shared moment stitched us closer, weaving a tapestry of connection, desire, and growing love. Then came the night that tested everything. It was an art critique session, and the pressure in the room was suffocating. Lila's work was under scrutiny, her passion challenged by professors who didn't understand the depth of her vision. I watched her defend her choices, every word sharp yet restrained, and felt a mix of pride and helplessness. After the session, she retreated to the empty studio, storm clouds of frustration darkening her face. I followed, hesitant, unsure if my presence would help or hinder. She didn't look at me at first, letting silence fill the space between us. Then finally she spoke, voice trembling. I feel like I'm always battling everyone, even myself. I moved closer, gently taking her hands in mine. "You don't have to battle alone," I reminded her. "We're a team, remember?" Her eyes glistened with tears, the vulnerability so raw it stole my breath. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. "You do," I insisted. "Every bit of love, every bit of trust. You deserve it, and I choose to give it to you." That night we held each other for hours, talking quietly, sharing fears, desires, and promises. The city outside faded, the storm outside becoming a backdrop to our own emotional tempest. And by dawn, when the first light crept into the studio, we had found a fragile but resilient peace. The days that followed were a gentle continuation of that discovery. We laughed, we argued, we created, and we loved. Every brushstroke, every shared glance, every soft touch became a testament to our connection. We learned each other's rhythms, the subtle signs of joy and distress, the ways to comfort and challenge each other. Chicago became more than a city. It became a canvas for us to paint our story. We explored its hidden corners, found inspiration in its architecture, its music, its quiet streets. Each experience, mundane or extraordinary, became richer because it was shared. And slowly, the fear that had shadowed our connection faded. What remained was trust, intimacy, and the kind of love that could weather storms and shine in sunlight. Lila, with her mystery and brilliance, and I, with my meticulous heart and longing for connection, had found something rare. A partnership that celebrated individuality while embracing unity. One evening we sat on the rooftop of the art school, the city sprawling beneath us, lights flickering like distant stars. She leaned against me, head resting on my shoulder, and sighed contentedly. "I never imagined it could feel like this," she murmured. "Neither did I replied softly, brushing her hair from her face. "But I wouldn't trade it for anything." And in that quiet, suspended moment, I realized something profound. Love, in its purest form, was not about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was about presence, understanding, and the willingness to grow together, to navigate the storms and the calm side by side. Lila squeezed my hand, a silent affirmation of the bond we had forged. And as the night deepened, the city humming below, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, hearts intertwined, a love unexpected yet undeniable. It was not the end of our story, it was the beginning of everything. Spring in Chicago had begun to settle into a rhythm, but the chaos of our emotions never seemed to follow the same calendar. Lila and I had fallen into a comfortable pattern. Art, shared meals, long walks, whispered confessions, and stolen kisses beneath streetlights. Yet, the undercurrent of tension, the uncertainty of new love, never fully dissipated. It was during one late evening in the studio that the subtle cracks began to surface. I had arrived earlier than usual, hoping to work on a portrait I had been struggling with, only to find her already there, standing before a blank canvas. "You're late," she teased lightly, though there was a shadow beneath her smile. "I wanted to finish this before you distracted me," I countered, trying to keep my tone playful. But I noticed the tightness in her shoulders, the small flicker of restlessness in her eyes. She turned to me slowly, eyes searching mine. "Am I distracting you?" "You are. And I wouldn't have it any other way," I admitted. "But something's wrong. Tell me." She hesitated, biting her lower lip, a gesture that always made my heart constrict. "It's complicated," she finally said, voice low. "I feel like maybe I'm holding you back." I frowned, stepping closer. "Lila, what are you talking about?" She shook her head, stepping back. "I don't know if I can. If I should." Her words cut through me like ice, a stark contrast to the warmth we had built over weeks of connection. I reached for her hands, holding them tightly. "Look at me," I demanded softly. "Whatever it is, we face it together. Don't shut me out now." Her green eyes shimmered with tears, and I realized then that fear had become a barrier, a wall she had been building to protect herself from the intensity of our emotions. I leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I'm not going anywhere, Lila. Not now, not ever." The tension lingered, but slowly, she leaned into my embrace, surrendering to trust, if only for a moment. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know," I murmured. "And that's okay. Fear doesn't make love any less real." The days that followed were a delicate dance. We navigated our insecurities, testing the boundaries of trust, discovering the depth of our commitment. Every challenge, no matter how small, became an opportunity to strengthen our bond. One afternoon, as sunlight poured into the studio, casting long shadows across canvases, Lila surprised me with an idea. "Let's do a collaborative piece," she suggested, eyes bright with excitement. "Something that combines both of user styles, our emotions." I hesitated. Collaboration had always been intimidating. My work was precise, controlled, while hers was wild, untamed, full of raw emotion. Yet the thought of creating something together, of merging our hearts onto a canvas, thrilled me. "Let's do it," I said finally, smiling. The process was chaotic and beautiful. Colors clashed, strokes overlapped, and at times we argued, laughter breaking the tension. We pushed each other, challenged each other, and in the end produced a masterpiece neither of us could have created alone. As we stood back, exhausted and exhilarated, I noticed how her eyes lingered on mine. "I never thought I'd feel so seen," she admitted, voice soft. "Like someone understands me, truly understands me." "You do," I whispered. "And I want to keep understanding every day." That night we walked through the quiet streets of Chicago, hand in hand, the city lights reflecting in puddles left by a light rain. She leaned her head against my shoulder, and I felt the rhythm of her heartbeat, steady and warm, syncing with my own. I think I'm falling for you," she murmured, her voice trembling with vulnerability. I stopped walking, turning to face her, cupping her face gently in my hands. "I've fallen already," I admitted, eyes shining with emotion. "And I don't want to stop." Her smile was radiant, the kind that made the world feel impossibly beautiful. We kissed then, a long, slow embrace that spoke of promises, passion, and the quiet joy of being fully seen. But life, as it always does, reminded us that love was never without complications. A prestigious art opportunity arose for Lila Chance to study abroad for a year in Paris. It was her dream, her career, and yet it threatened to pull us apart. We sat together in the studio, the air heavy with unspoken fear. "I don't want to go," I admitted finally, my voice tight with emotion. "I know," she said softly, "and I don't want to leave either. But this is my chance. My dream." I took her hands, holding them as though letting go might break us. "Then we figure it out. We always do." Tears glistened in her eyes and she leaned into me. "I don't want to lose us," she whispered. "You won't," I promised. Distance doesn't define love. We do. The weeks leading up to her departure were bittersweet. We filled our days with stolen moments, late-night painting sessions, long walks along the lakefront, and quiet talks under the stars. Every touch was more meaningful, every kiss more tender, as though we were imprinting our love onto the world before being temporarily separated. On her last night in Chicago, we returned to the rooftop of the art school, the city sprawling beneath us in a sea of lights. She pressed a small canvas into my hands. "It's for you," she said softly. "A reminder." I opened it to find a painting of the two of us, abstract yet unmistakably intertwined, connected, alive. My throat tightened. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "Just like us," she replied, leaning against me, her head on my shoulder. "No matter where I go, it stays." We stayed there until the first light of dawn, holding each other, savoring the moment, knowing that change was coming but trusting in what we had built. The next morning, I watched her leave for the airport, tears threatening to fall but held back by the promise in our eyes. "I'll come back," she said softly, voice trembling with emotion. "And we'll continue our story." "I'll be here," I said firmly, forcing a smile, "waiting for you no matter how long it takes." Paris was far, but it couldn't diminish what we had. We wrote letters, video called whenever time zones allowed, and sent small gifts and sketches to each other. The distance was hard, but it deepened our connection, teaching us patience, trust, and the resilience of love. Months passed, and the day finally came when she returned. I waited at the airport, heart pounding, scanning every arriving passenger until I saw her, radiant and smiling, eyes locking with mine. "Hey," she whispered, breathless, as she wrapped her arms around me. "Hey," I replied, holding her as if I could never let go again. We left the airport together, walking hand in hand through the familiar streets of Chicago. It felt like coming home, Only this time our hearts were fuller, our bond stronger, our love deeper. That evening we returned to the studio, the space that had witnessed the birth of our relationship, our fears, our dreams, and our growth. We stood before our collaborative canvas, now a symbol of everything we had endured and achieved together. "I missed this," she said softly, brushing her hand against mine. "Me too," I replied, leaning into her warmth. "And now, we start a new chapter." We kissed slow and tender, sealing the promise of our future. Every fear, every doubt, every distance we had faced was swept away by the certainty of our connection. The world outside might continue to turn, but within the studio, within our hearts, we had found a love that was unwavering, passionate, and real. From that day forward, we continued our journey together, navigating life with laughter, creativity, and devotion. Lila and I became inseparable, our love a quiet rebellion against uncertainty, a testament to trust, resilience, and the beauty of being fully seen by someone else. Chicago, with its windy streets, glowing lights, and hidden corners, became more than a city. It became a canvas of our love, a witness to our story. And every time I looked at Lila, every time our hands brushed, every time we shared a quiet moment in the studio or beneath the stars, I knew one truth. Some connections are meant to change everything. Some nights, some people, some love, come along and transform the ordinary into something extraordinary. And ours, unexpected, thrilling, fragile, and unbreakable, was exactly that. Together we had found a masterpiece not on canvas, but in each other. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.